Jeez Louise, man. I did not expect Oshi no Ko to be that serious of an episode today. And I know I'm reviewing this super late at night, but hey, I had work, had a bunch of other stuff I had to do. And then an incident happened, and then whatever. But albeit, I'm still in a decent good mood as I'm ending off my night for tonight. And what an episode by Oshi no Ko, man. What an episode, man. And honest to God, man, was this an episode that if it, it definitely might have to be up there in like one of my like top anime episodes I've ever watched in my life, like type of stuff. Like it was that deep, it was that good, and it was surprisingly and very dark for the tone that it put in this episode. And man, what else can I say, man? What else can I frickin' say? Now, listening to other reviewers as I was driving on the way home from work, just talk about the episodes, just hearing what their takes were, it was great to hear. And the fact that, they actually kind of did this episode based off an actual, like, real life situation where somebody just took their life. Because they couldn't handle the cyberbullying. And that was kind of the thing in this episode. Pretty much the main story point of this episode was, well, we continue on with mostly focusing on Aqua's kind of side of things, but in terms of this reality, in terms of that reality show that he's doing, but really it's only focused on one of the other girls in the show, and that is Akane, the blue-haired chick, who pretty much we see throughout the first part of the episode, like, she really doesn't do a lot, she really doesn't speak up, or she doesn't take a lot of action for, herself in terms of her character on said TV, and obviously it feels like she's just a character that's just, well, there. You had the whole scene with the one, I guess, boss of this huge corporation that's, I guess, funding her, as pretty much screaming at her manager. She overhears this whole discussion and everything, and he's pretty much saying, like, listen, if she ain't doing anything, then what's the heck's going on? She ain't bringing in the dough, so if she ain't doing anything, then what the hell am I going to use her talents for? If she can't do anything, well, screw that. She probably doesn't even have any talents if she's losing, if she can't do anything. So that pretty much happens, and then, she starts to take the initiative to do more, and pretty much in this dating reality show, it kind of comes across as she wants attention, because we see how the one black-haired girl and this one silver-haired guy character, they pretty much start to be the center stage main character. And there was actually one thing that Aqua did have a discussion with the one yellow-haired girl, the one that kind of is like, the one that's a YouTuber that kind of has like the typical anime cat gimmick girl look. She questions Aqua like, hey, you could do more with your looks and everything. You could probably be like a lead character in this. And Aqua's like, nah, I'm kind of better being a background character, to be honest, which that's kind of been Aqua's MO this entire thing. Now, the reason why I feel like he's doing that situation before I get back to the main topic at hand, is because I think he wants to stay into the shadows as much, so he doesn't give it attention away to obviously who he thinks is his father, that is obviously the main responsible person who killed Ai in his own eyes. I feel like he wants to stay back and kind of be under the wing, so if he like were to be a main character or something like that, well, then maybe he could spit out or grow out too much, and the dad may be like, wait a second, he looks similar to Ai. This might be her son. And then guess what? Maybe he might send a hit on him if the father did kill Ai indeed. But that was kind of the only thing. But Aqua was kind of the background until he ended up saving Akane at the end of the episode. But like, going back to the premise, you just have it to where people just feel like that on their social media. She's reading that, and then it comes to a moment where she wants to make an action, and it looks like, oh, she slapped the black-haired chick, but Akane just did that on an accident basis, and then that's when the whole world came down, and then people were like, oh, yeah, yada, yada. And then you could just see as the days progressed, and the more she read social media, the more how it truly did affect her. And even when her mom said, like, is she okay? And even even the other actors were asking, like, hey, you know, are you okay? Like, we're worried about you. Like, we want to see if you're all right and everything. You know, from not only the online harassment, but even when she's just going to school, hearing that in the bathroom, making her sick to her stomach, where she's basically throwing up in the toilet from just bystander or other classmates, pretty much. It almost brings her to the point where she was literally about to just end it all and just jump off the railing and finish it all off. And that was pretty much the episode and then Aqua saves her at the last second. And that's where the episode ends off. But man, just talk about a dark, depressing, very emotionally driven episode. And like I said, this whole episode was also based off a real life, event that happened. Now, I don't know what event that in Japan where it happened. If you do want to list in the comment section, please, by all means, list in the comment section so I'm aware of the situation. But I did hear that it is based off a actual legit, real life event where a person was very affected through social media, through the negativity and just the cyberbullying and everything, and these people saying these detestable things to her, or said person, really, and she just couldn't handle it, and then she just felt like she wasn't needed in this world no more. And, just the overall topic of, somebody, like, being cyberbullied or bullied online, especially in the world. And again, this show, Oshi no Ko, not only kind of shows you in some cases the positive aspects of being, whether it's an idol or a very famous person or something like that, the positives you can get with being that, but at the same time, there are also downsides and negatives to that. For example, I like to gravitate my area into the sports field. I gravitate to that. Like, one of my current, I work literally right now in the sports world, literally, and stuff like that. Like, my office is literally a legit stadium. I'm not even joking right now. Like a professional stadium. Like, I literally do that. And, it really made me after I watched the episode, it really made me reevaluate, like, damn. All these famous people, they go through what they gotta go through, and they have their own social medias and things like that, and, it's just absolutely crazy that, in a way, they kind of can't really pay attention to that, and it's so crazy how and I really do wonder, if I were to ever have a Q&A session with, like, either a very, like, in terms of an interview, in terms of, like, a sports athlete or an actress or actor or something like that, that would be, like, one of my number one questions, like, how do you ignore social media, and how do you put that down and things like that and not pay attention too much to it? Do you have, like, some sort of burner account or something like that? Obviously, I feel like they want to ask that, but, I think the generic question would be, like, they don't mess with the social media, but, you would have to wonder how much does it take away, because especially for sport athletes and things like that, and even actors. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that in comparison to the world I like, which is sports. Athletes, they get criticized daily, whether it's a superstar player or it's one of the role players in the team, they get criticized daily. And sometimes those athletes go on social media, they see the hate they get. Now, I don't condone, negativity or people saying worse or terrible things and maybe involving their families or it just in general, not only just athletes, but other famous people's families, or telling them, like, they should do this with their life. Like, it's not within their right it's not within said person who's tweeting that or posting that on a social media to say that, nor talk about somebody's family, nor say these awful things. But see, that's the thing too. This show, Oshi no Ko, also shows the dark aspects of being a very popular, famous character in media, whether it's, you know, athletics or showbiz or being an idol like we say how Ruby is trying to be. And I wonder if they're actually going to do an episode. And that's kind of the crazy thing. You would think they would do an episode about that, maybe with Ruby, understanding that whole aspect of social media and trying to stay off it, which, funny enough, there was a part in this episode where Kana pretty much slaps Ruby by saying, listen, you can't post that because Ruby didn't like this water or this brand of this water, and Kano's like, you can't tweet that. As much as you want to tweet that, listen, people are going to see, and they're going to see your opinion on something, and then something will they'll take it however you tweeted it. If you become popular, well, then people will dig that up, and then boom, they'll make it, they'll blow it up pretty much and say like, oh, this is what you're saying, So that's kind of the thing. And then too, also, Kana was saying that, like, well, what if you get a sponsorship deal if you're big enough? You don't want to freaking tweet, oh, I don't like this water company or something. And guess what? They look at that company looks at that, and they're like, oh, this person, we can't work with this person. They don't like our freaking branding. And Kana made the good point, like, well, I don't care if you like it. If you're going to get sponsored money, well, then you're going to get sponsored whether you like the sponsor or not. Like, geez Louise, like, you know, if I get a job, like, again, I want a sport. You know, I want to work in the sports field. If I freaking get an opportunity to work for the freaking, one of my hated teams is the Green Bay Packers because I'm a Bears fan. I'm going to take that job because if it's the only job in the market that I'm being offered and it's a good paycheck and everything, well then, as much as I don't want to freaking, or as much as I don't like the team, I'll probably secretly still root for the Bears. But I'll still freaking come in and get the check because I want to work for a professional sports team. But, you know, ultimately, this episode really goes to show you, like, how bad, due to cyberbullying, people can be affected by it. And it just takes one word. And the thing is, it's crazy because, you know, you have it in the episode where Akane, the incident happens and she sees the backlash she gets from that. And she, in a really bad way, he tweets like, hey, I didn't mean anything by it. Now, you know, obviously she knows she's just playing a character and things like that. But obviously people responded to that said tweet where she said she didn't mean nothing by it, and people just took it even worse. And the more she looked at it, you could just see the look in her eyes. It just broke her and things like that. And you could think like, well, you know, maybe she should just get off social media and she should just stay away and she shouldn't just pay attention to that. And yes, you can do that, but at the end of the day, it's still pretty hard. Everybody wants that recognition, pretty much. And it's something like, if you want to post something, you know, you want everybody to see it and hopefully it's good, you know. You know, I've tweeted several times where it blew up. Some comments were positive, some comments were negative. You know, it didn't eat at me a lot. I did respond to some things, but it didn't really eat at me a lot. But you can see just the damage that people's words can do behind a keyboard. And at the end of the day, we always have to look at ourselves as human beings and look at these very famous, these people on high pedestals, you know, that are doing amazing things that, guess what, we only wish we could do. You know, we have to look at it and, like, they're also people too. They're also human beings as well. Yes, they can do amazing things that maybe we can do. They can maybe act infinitely better, or they can play a set sport infinitely better, or do this infinitely better than we can. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're still going home to their own families, or, you know, or if they're by themselves and things like that. They're, you know, we always have to freaking I think people need to do a little bit more soul searching and understand that. But obviously you can't, because there's going to be people out there that just don't get it and they don't want to accept that, and they just say hurtful things just to say hurtful things because, I don't know, maybe that's how they feel. And sometimes some people just take things a little bit too seriously. Like, you know, it was kind of disgusting to see how, even though people in reality shows, in some cases, yes, are they scripted? Yes. And in some other stuff unscripted? Yes. But, you know, the fact that there are people out there that just don't give a crap and they don't understand, like, hey, this is a scripted show, you know, in some cases. Let's not really look at this. And the thing is, I thought they were actually going to go the direction where Akane uses that fuel, maybe becomes like maybe a villain character on the show, and they actually make something out of it. But no, they don't. And she obviously got so eaten up about it and paying attention. And obviously with somebody that is in that mindset of the S word, I'm not going to say it because I don't know if YouTube will allow it. You know, you don't really tend to hear anybody. I've never been in that state where I've been so depressed to the point where I've thought about maybe taking my own life. I never ever experienced that, and nor do I want to experience that. But, you know, for people, from the stories I always hear, you know, they tone people out. They don't really listen to people. Yeah, maybe they put on a face that they look all right and everything, but in reality, they don't, you know, and behind the scenes, that doesn't happen. I've been across 2 events in my entire life. Only one time in high school, when I was actually in high school, and then another event when I was off my high school campus after I like graduated. In terms of like, I didn't witness it, but you know, at my high school, a kid ended up taking their own life because they were bullied. And it was kind of a big topic at my high school. And I remember the next day, you know, it was pretty much a very silent, like, campus. Like, a lot of people were crying, and there was this one tree where everybody put, like, the flowers and in a way to honor the said kid that passed away. You know, I remember that entire lunch area. It was just dead silent. There was just people standing around the tree, just paying as much respect as they can. Which was absolutely crazy, to say the least. So, yeah, that was kind of crazy. But it really goes to show you that this episode goes to show you that, hey, people go through that, and there are thousands of people on this planet, and I would not be shocked if there's one person going through depression right now to the point that maybe they might think about it and they might say, maybe I'm better off not being around people, because that's really the kind of the start of how people end up thinking of maybe not being valued as much, and people think that they aren't as loved by others. But, you know, the truth is, no, people are wanted and people are loved. You are loved and things like that. So that's kind of the thing. HI Dive did a great job at, you know, doing this episode. Everybody on the staff, you know, who did this episode was phenomenal. I'm happy that Aqua definitely saved her before the worst happened, because I was watching this episode and I'm like, and I knew at first, and then the more I watched, and I'm like, I saw the second go around when she was looking at her phone, I'm like, she's gonna get depressed and she's probably gonna she's gonna take her life, isn't she? And I thought that's where they were going at the end of the episode, and they did that. It was a really good scene where it looked like, oh, she was in this bliss and she was happy, but then they cut to the real world. You could see how really messed up she was and how broken she was. And when she got on that railing, I'm like, no, they're really, Oshinoko's really gonna do this. It was already bad enough. We saw a stalker kill what we thought presumably was going to be the main character of the show alongside the children. Alongside Aqua and Ruby. And I really thought, like, oh, they're going to do this? I really thought they were going to do this. Then Aqua shows up and saves her and pretty much says, you're pretty much wanted by everybody. Don't do this. You know. So I don't know where next episode is going to go, but I'm looking very much forward to this week's episode, or next week's episode, and this episode definitely killed it. You know, right now, episode 1 and episode 6 of Oshi no Ko, they're number 1. They're fighting neck and neck for what episode 1 is, and I don't know which one I will take. Obviously, I love the start of episode 1 and how much it hit you, especially at the end. But this episode was a complete, like, just shock where when you watch the episode, you're just quiet. Like, you're just watching. It isn't like you're reacting. Like, you're like, oh my gosh. You're just watching, and you're just like, wow. And you're just in utter shock and awe. But like I said, props to everybody who worked on this episode, the voice actors, all the people behind the scenes, and especially props to H.I. Dive. I think that's one thing that we got to give credit to. H.I. Dive, if you guys didn't catch it at the end of the end of the episode, after if you stayed to watch the just song credits and listen to the song credits, when the screen went black, H.I. Dive did a wonderful job, and you have to give props up to H.I. Dive. They were definitely socially aware of how very important this episode meaning is. And they literally put up, hey, you know, this show is a work of fiction. You know, nothing here is real, but obviously the stuff within the episode, the meaning in the episode is real. And if you do have somebody that's going through this, obviously the S-word situation, well then call the hotline immediately to go get help for that said person. So I have to give props to H.I. Dive for doing that. I'm not trying to say that they didn't have to do it. I think for an episode meeting, I think it's definitely warranted, and the fact that they actually had the awareness to do that, you know, you wouldn't think within your mind, you wouldn't think within the mindset if you're going to do an episode in regards to characters potentially taking their own lives, you know, you wouldn't think maybe they put that hotline, but no, especially for an anime, which there's been many animes where characters have killed themselves off, for obviously crazy reasons and things like that, but this is like the one episode where like a character was willing to pretty much take their life because of, you know, social media and cyberbullying and things like that. And you know, that's kind of the thing there. And so props to H.I. Dive for putting that message, putting that hotline at the end of the episode, to let people still be aware of the situation. Like, listen, you know, if you have somebody that's going through this, call the hotline, immediately, and let that people get the help and this kind of thing. But listen, man, you know, this episode was very deep in its meaning, and it really hits, you know, close to home. I've never had to deal with an experience in my family or anybody that's close to me, whether it's friends or family, that took their own life because they felt not wanted. Again, like I said, I don't want to be put in that mind space where I think those thoughts ever. I don't want to have a moment where any of my family members nor any of my friends ever have that moment where they think about that, and things like that. And if anything, if they do think about that, I want to do whatever I can to help set that person, whether it's a family member or a friend. But this episode had a lot of meanings of how dark and how deep and how toxic social media can be. You know, I try to stay off social media as much as I can, even though it's kind of hard for me to do. But, you know, sometimes it's always good to put that phone down and just get away from it. And listen, if you have a struggling time with social media, I think the best thing to do is delete it. You don't need any of that unnecessary stress. Like, delete it. I honestly believe that it can take something off your life, just a stress relief. And that's also what these famous people do. And they just say, listen, I'm not going to have social media. They just have their PR department handle it, you know, and things like that. So, yeah, it's really deep. And, you know, it also shows you that cyberbullying, listen, that's not good. And, you know, if you're somebody that does cyberbullying yourself and you say these detestable things because maybe it's something that you don't like or you're just doing that to other people, well, then don't condone it, you know, and things like that. You know, I don't condone that. I would honestly request, if you're in that case doing that, definitely stop. But it's a great episode. This was a great episode. It definitely hits close to home. It goes to show you that sometimes you do have to have that tough skin, and probably ignore social media and things like that. But, you know, it's obviously hard because you want to see, especially in Akane's choice, she wants to see people praise her if she did a good job. Because she's just trying to work herself off. She's trying to work pretty much her ass off to be viewed as somebody that's doing good. And sometimes you may not get the proper, I guess, recognition or praise that you may think you're getting. But really good episode of Oshi no Ko, man. It really hit home, and it really made me reevaluate, a bunch of things, and stuff like that. But man, I don't think there's nothing else I can say, man. Definitely watch other people's reviews on this episode, man, and you'll definitely get different takes. It'll all still be the same meaning and all the still same takes, but definitely listen to what other people have to say, because this episode hits close to home. And again, if you know anybody in your life that is going through troubling times where they may think, or you have a feeling they may think that you think that they may get to the point where they may take their life, well, the hotline you have to call. All you have to do is just look up the S word prevention hotline and just Google it and find it, and let that person know that you want to be there for them and you want to have them get help, things like that. But other than that, that's all I can say. So if you guys like the video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts on this week's Oshi no Ko episode, as well as your predictions where the next can go. Again, don't leave any spoilers for whatever happens in the future of this storyline, things like that. But till then, guys, stay safe out there. Have a great rest of your day. See you guys next video. Peace.